We've started a mini-series, Presidents and Civil Rights, and I wasn't going to do this president because I feel like I've talked about him over and over and over again, especially when I discuss Reconstruction, but I'm going to talk about Rutherford B Hayes because I don't think y'all know history. Like, do they talk about him in school? Do you learn about him? Like, what do you know about Rutherford B Hayes? Do they talk kindly about him? Because I hope they don't. I hope they tell you the truth about this man in plain English. He is the reason why Reconstruction failed. Yeah, he's the reason why black people lived in over 80 years of Jim Crow. Yeah, I hope they say it that plainly. If they don't, remember those words as we proceed. Okay, sorry. I got ahead of myself because I felt some kind of way. Let's talk about Rutherford B. Hayes. Yeah. He was the 19th President of the United States following Ulysses S. Grant. And his presidency did end Reconstruction, that period of time following the Civil War. Now, Hayes believed in meritocracy, which is equal treatment regardless of wealth, social standing, or race, which is supposed to be a good thing, right? He defended slaves who had escaped and been accused under the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. He fought for the Union Army during the Civil War, and after the war, when he was elected to Congress, he voted with the radical Republicans who passed the Civil Rights Act of 1866, the 14th Amendment, and the 15th Amendment. He also voted to impeach Andrew Johnson, who was working against black people and their civil rights. Hayes would go on to agree with the proposed amendment to the Ohio State Constitution that would guarantee suffrage to black male Ohioans. When he was nominated for a second term, congressman for Ohio, he campaigned again for equal rights for black Ohioans. But something happened between 1872 and 1877. He retired from government, but was nominated for and won the governorship of Ohio in 1877. And this success propelled him to a presidential election in 1876. Frederick Douglass asked Hayes and Representative William A. Wheeler if they would continue its devotion to protecting black civil rights or get along without the vote of the black man in the South. And this was after the Republican Party had made Hayes and Wheeler emphasized conciliatory appeals to the Southern Whiggish element, attempting to detach old Southern Whigs from Southern Democrats. Regardless, they were Southern white men that they were wooing. Hayes advocated for the latter, go without the votes of black men in the South. That was his choice. The election of 1876 was a scene of obscene election violence in the South. South Carolina alone was the most extreme, with 8 riots or massacres. First, they took back control of the state legislature and the governor's office from the Republicans, and then they forced blacks to vote for the Democratic candidate or not at all. This resulted in electoral votes from South Carolina being contested. And it wasn't just South Carolina, it was Florida, Louisiana, and Oregon as well. They were all contested. So now we have electoral college votes that are contested and nobody's president. Well, something has to be done. The country needs a president. So at a high level, the politicians went behind closed doors and played let's make a deal. Rutherford B. Hayes and the Republicans agreed to several things, one of them being the removal of the Union troops from the remaining southern states, as well as allowing the South to deal with the blacks as they saw fit. In return, the contested electoral votes would go to Hayes instead of his opponent, Samuel Tilden. And the man who fought for fugitive enslaved people, who fought for the Union Army, who fought to pass the 14th and 15th Amendments, threw black people to the wolves and trapped them in near enslavement for over 80 years so he could be president. Now, Hayes did make attempts to protect the rights of Southern blacks, but it was ineffective, as were his attempts to rebuild Republican strength in the South. They say he felt bad. They say that he felt bad for what he did, that he tried to help the blacks in the South. But his guilt doesn't do anybody any good. It doesn't bring back the 4,084 black men, women, and children who were lynched between 1877 and 1950, and that's the number that we know of right now. It doesn't bring back the 300 black men, women, and children who were unalived in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921, the 150 people who were unalived in Rosewood, Florida, or the 300 black men, women, and children in Wilmington, North Carolina who were unalived, or how about the summer of 1919, which is a direct result of the actions taken in 1877. The fatalities were just under 500, all because one man wanted to be president, so he threw an entire race under the bus. His guilt means shit to me. The Compromise of 1877 wipes out every good deed he did before. He wanted to be president, so he made a choice. And he re-enslaved black people when he made that choice.